Hi, this is Tim and Joel. Welcome to Midwest Hunting and Outdoors by Two Dumbasses,
a podcast about the outdoors, hunting,
and being a steward of the land.
Iowa Missouri Hybrids has been a family-owned business since the 1930s. Located in historic Keosauqua, Iowa, Aaron and his team are a one-stop shop for farmers, hunters, and landowners. For your conservation program, CRP, food plots, and all planting needs, give Aaron at IMH a call and tell him the Two Dumbasses sent you. Established in 1934, Pete & Shorty's is located on Main Street, Clarksville, Iowa. Pete & Shorty's is famous for their half-pound burgers, hand-breaded tenderloins, and homemade pizza. The beer is always cold, and the Bloody Marys are the best in town. Stop in and tell Mike and Amy that the Two Dumbasses sent you.
Welcome to Midwest Hunting and Outdoors by Two Dumbasses. Might look a little more familiar because we've got Tyler Harms with us today. Before we get to Tyler, Tim, we got some things to talk about.
Well, first off, we've gotten, 10 subscribers in the last week, new subscribers. So I'd like to first thank people that are subscribing to our channel and have been with us. And for those of you that this may be new, if you like what we're doing, we'd appreciate you to subscribe with us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, which is awesome. The other awesome news is we've got a couple new sponsors. So you would have seen this already in this episode, but we want to just kind of give them a highlight. Sponsor number one is Pete & Shorty's Bar and Grill in downtown Main Street, Clarksville, Iowa. So if you get a chance to see Mike and Amy at Pete & Shorty's, it's been there since 1930s. And you can't miss it. It's Clarksville, by the way, so you just can't miss it. Yep. And IMH, Iowa Missouri Hybrids, and that episode is coming up soon. And Aaron would love to hear from you as a customer, and tell him the Two Dumbasses sent you.
Yep.
We'll go from there. Tim, anything else to talk about this morning?
No, I think just to reiterate, we appreciate the sponsors that are backing us. And then, as Joel mentioned, we've got Aaron coming on from Iowa Missouri Hybrids, also from the 1930s. It's been in business since then. And he is the food plot Scientologist. So it's going to be a really great episode.
A lot of knowledge. So I hope you seek those two sponsors out. From our standpoint, they're great supporters, and I know big things are going to come out of that. Speaking of big things, our guest today is Tyler Harms with the Iowa DNR. And Tyler, I know in a previous episode you did a little, introduction of yourself, but can you just revisit that real quick and summarize who you are and what you do for the Iowa DNR?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much, Joel and Tim, for having me on again. Happy to be chatting with you both. It's a lot of fun the last time. So I'm currently the biometrician for the Iowa DNR, as well as the deer program leader. So essentially what that means is that I, as a biometrician, I provide research and survey guidance to our Wildlife Bureau on anything related to wildlife research and survey design. But then also as the deer program leader, I handle essentially everything related to white-tailed deer management in the state. So what that really entails is summarizing the harvest, which we'll talk a little bit about today, making regulations, changes, and management recommendations, and then also just providing information to our field staff on what population and habitat management for white-tailed deer looks like in the state of Iowa.
I'm just kind of laughing to myself because with every job description, there's always a little asterisk that's always at the end, right? And then it always says, and anything else basically your boss says that you need to be doing.
That's exactly
Do you
right.
have one of those asterisks on your job description?
I do for sure. Yeah, especially on the biometrician side of things. That kind of catches a lot of different areas.
So last time we did trumpeter swans,
That's
right?
right.
So
That's right.
you done anything fun like trumpeter swans?
I haven't done any trumpeter swan work recently, although what has been fun is if you recall, we put GPS collars on those swans. And so the fun part now is, well, the fun part is catching them in the field,
Sure.
right? But what's equally fun, at least in my opinion, as a data guy, is watching where those birds go. And so we're tracking them right now. And we just talked about this morning, actually. It was really interesting here in the last week or two. So most of these swans they'll hang out in Iowa or maybe just south of us for the most part throughout the winter. You know, they're a big, hardy bird. They can handle these cold snaps. But last week, it looks like it got just a little bit too cold for quite a few of them, because it was interesting. Almost all of the birds flew further south last week. A lot of them flew down further south into Missouri or into Kansas. We do have some birds that are still hanging out in Iowa, but it was just funny to see those movements. They're like, yeah, this is just getting a little too cold for me. I think I'll bump down a little further south. So it was really interesting.
I think that and the half the population of Iowa, right, probably did the same thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. With that said, let's talk. This episode is all about 2020 harvest. My understanding is these numbers haven't been publicated yet. They're usually publicated in the fall. Is that?
Well, so the harvest summary, we'll get ready to publish that here in the next week or two, and we usually make that information available at our public listening sessions, which are coming up here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But folks are going to hear it first here on this episode. So
That's right. Yeah.
Let's get into the 2020 harvest. So where would you like to start as far as talking about it?
Sure. So I always like to just start with talking about things at the statewide level, right? That's really what we like to manage. And so we summarize harvest and license sales at the statewide level. We do harvest and license sales because the license sales part is a really important component, because obviously the number of deer that are harvested in the state is going to depend on the number of licenses and hunters that are out there. So that license sales component allows us to somewhat standardize that harvest. And so for the 2020 season, we harvested 109,549 deer statewide, which is about a 10% increase compared to last year. We also sold about 340,000 deer licenses last year, which is right around 160,000 hunters. And that actually saw a 6% increase between last year and, I say last year, 2019 and 2020. And so we saw an increase both license sales and harvest this past year.
So what do you attribute that to? I mean, 6% seems significant.
Yeah, so it is actually. That's the 6% increase in license sales is the largest increase in deer license sales we've seen since 2005.
Wow.
So I think the more interesting thing, and maybe we can get into this a little bit later, is that the number of hunters stayed relatively stable, almost exactly the same as last year. So I think what that probably tells us is that we've got the same hunters, and those folks just got out and purchased more licenses last year. That 6% increase it's on par with sales trends that we're seeing in other hunting and fishing licenses. So spring turkey license sales were higher this last spring than what they have been. I think we saw a 12% increase in spring turkey license sales. Fishing license sales in Iowa are also on the increase. And this trend is actually being observed in other Midwest states as well. And I think the best explanation for it is the COVID-19 pandemic. People are at home, they're working from home, they're needing a reason to get outside, they have more time to get outside, and so hunting and fishing, we know, is a very popular recreational activity. Perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. That
Yeah,
makes a lot of
it does.
sense.
Yeah.
And the data seems to support that with what I think I heard you say was same number of group of hunters, size of hunters, but they purchase more tags.
Yeah, and that actually is a little bit different for the deer hunters, and that was something that somewhat surprised me, because what we've been seeing is that for like spring turkey licenses, for example, we did recruit some new hunters, or at least hunters that maybe haven't hunted turkeys in the last 10 years, but maybe did when they were younger. So we did add what you might be able to call new people to that bunch, but it kind of seems like, at least with deer, that might not be the case. Now, we could have we could have lost some folks and gained some folks. You know, there's ebb and flow in there that
Sure.
we really don't tease out necessarily. But yeah, the numbers, the number of hunters stayed the same. It's just the licenses went up.
And there really wasn't any, new hunting seasons or categories of hunting that than previous years.
Nothing really changed. No. We did increase the number of antlerless licenses available last year, both through our county antlerless license quotas, and then also, we have these special chronic wasting disease hunts as well that allow additional antlerless harvest opportunities. But those really aren't new. They've been around for a while. So I do think it's, while we can never really put our finger on it, I think it's a pretty strong speculation, appropriate speculation to think that was because people just have more time to get out in the field.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's good. Within that big number, if you break it down by shotgun, bow, muzzle loading, those are kind of the big three.
Yep.
Equally distributed. Did all of those rise? If you wanted to stratify those down, can you talk to that?
Yeah. So, with the 10% increase, oftentimes we see an increase across the board in all of our seasons. The biggest increases, if you break it down by season, actually came during our muzzleloader seasons. Both early and late muzzleloaders saw about a 25% on average increase in harvest last year. I think the one component of the harvest that I was most excited about, guys, was the youth season. Our youth licenses saw a 47% increase in harvest.
Wow,
that's 2019.
That's great.
That
Yeah.
gets me pretty fired up, right? Our youth are getting after it, which is fantastic. The remainder of the seasons, Joel, it was kind of hovering right around that 6 to 10% increase in harvest overall. Archery seasons, shotgun seasons, for the most part. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's exciting about the youth and honestly the muzzleloading. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. The 109 plus deer taken, how does that compare to the goal that you guys have set?
It's right smack in the middle of it, which is right where we want to be. So our population goal is an annual harvest of 100 to 120,000 deer. So 110,000.
Perfect.
We're right in the middle. Yeah, it's right where we want to be, and really that's where we've been trying to keep it more or less at that level for the past several years. And in the mid 2000s is when we were at our peak, and I think for the most part everyone in Iowa was in agreement that there were probably a few too many deer running around, and so we were aggressive with our management from 2006 to 2013. 2013 we hit that goal level. We harvested just shy of 100,000 deer in 2013. And so we've been sitting right at that level more or less with just a slight increase here in the last 5 years.
If I remember, it was like 99,999, right? 'Cause
Yeah, last year.
I was giving you grief that, come on, you can't get one more deer to make it.
I know. Yeah, last year that was pretty interesting. I think the year before that was 105,000, give or take. So we've been just kind of hovering right around that low 100,000s mark.
All good stuff, right? All positives. Were if I had to drag us down in the dirt and say, was there any downside this year in the harvest? Is there any bad news?
No, I mean really from a harvest standpoint, I don't think there was. We're right on par with our goal for harvest. We saw increase in license sales. The weather, I think, for the most part, was pretty favorable for a lot of the seasons. I heard some grumblings about the mild weather during the shotgun seasons, but we still saw an increase in harvest. So I think it was overall it was a good year to get out and hunt deer. And last year I think we talked about this. We had our hemorrhagic disease outbreak, and
Sure.
Lots of folks, I'm sure many of your listeners were concerned about that last year, and there was a lot of concern coming into this year with what the numbers might be, because it was our second largest outbreak of that disease we've seen in Iowa, and the fact that harvest bounced right back up to where we were the year before the disease outbreak, that's a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
And from what I heard from hunters in the field, you know, overwhelmingly folks were saying, yeah, we're seeing the numbers. Still heard some folks saying maybe there's some residual effects of the disease outbreak, but for the most part, people were happy with what they were seeing in the field. So overall, a good season.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. Good. Tim, anything else that you?
You know,
questions?
so with, you know, we're into 2021. I know we're talking 2020 season. Any concerns about the weather that we've been having so far here, January, February, impacting the deer herd?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, Tim, because I have started to get some reports from folks that are starting to see some stressed deer. You know, it's been cold. We've got a lot of snow on the ground. I know down in your neck of the woods, you've got that layer of ice underneath all the snow, and that makes it really hard for them to get down and forage and find food. And so, you know, I am getting some reports. You know, it's hard to say at this point what it's going to do. We might see some local changes in populations if it's real bad in areas, but you know, for the most part, deer are pretty resilient critters, and we're starting to see a warm up here. So I'm hoping that the weather's going to change for the better for us. And
Good.
but encourage folks, if you are seeing some deer that are looking stressed out or seeing behaviors or things like that might suggest that deer are stressed, be happy to take those reports. We do monitor those to some extent to, it helps us kind of learn and determine what might be happening this winter, so that when we start to collect survey data again this spring, we can use those observations to help inform what we're seeing in the data.
Very good.
Yeah, awesome.
Tim, anything else?
Nope, that does it.
Tyler, thank you so much. Sounds like if we had to summarize the 2020 season, sounds like a perfect season. Numbers are up, percentages are up, and really good to hear about the youth, right? 50% increase almost. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll see it. But thank you so much, and until the next episode, Tim, be safe, have fun, and get outdoors. Thanks for listening or watching our show. We have some exciting topics and guests coming up.
We ask that you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
We look forward to hearing your suggestions for topics,
Questions and comments. This is Two Dumbasses signing off. Until next time,
be safe,
have fun, and get outdoors.